Pruning used to be really intimidating to me, but it didn't take me very long to realize that it's not actually that difficult as long as you understand why you're doing it and what you're trying to accomplish. Now, as far as peach trees go, if you do nothing else to care for your peach trees, pruning is the thing to do because it helps them in so many ways. There's more than one right way to do this. So today in this video, I'm going to show you how I prune my peach trees. I'll walk you through the steps of the process. You'll see the before and after, and hopefully you'll feel less intimidated than I did when I first started, and you'll be ready to tackle this job. So everybody's pruning goals might be a little bit different, and some people may not want to prune hardly at all. And if you don't prune your peach tree, it will probably fruit. So there are other reasons to prune. For one thing, I want to control just the overall form and size of the tree, because obviously as the tree gets bigger, it's going to be harder and harder to pick the fruit. And generally you'll find, this isn't always the case, but especially as the tree grows large, you might find that more of the fruit is at the top of the tree because that's where more of the sun hits. So I want to control the size a little bit. The other thing I really want to do is keep airflow in mind. I have a lot of disease pressure here, so air being able to move freely throughout the tree can really help prevent some of that. And then also light. You want to make sure light gets to each part of the tree as best you can. And you'll find that to do that, professional growers like this, it's called an open center form, or you'll hear it described as being shaped like a vase. So you remove a lot of the branches in the middle of the tree and you have everything else kind of growing around the outside. And this is so light can get into the center of the tree and ripen all the fruit. More light means more sugar development, which means better flavored fruit. So this is a goal that I have for sure, but I do it in a less extreme way than like a professional grower would. If you look at pictures of professional peach orchards, they look kind of weird because all of their branches are sticking out and they're bald in the middle. I still want my peach trees to look nice in my backyard. Just like with so many other things in gardening, it's a balancing act because too much pruning is going to stimulate the tree to grow, specifically green, leafy, vegetative growth. And that might mean less fruit if you overdo it because all of the energy is going to go to rebuilding the canopy of the tree. But too little pruning, you will see your tree fruit, and in fact, it may fruit really, really prolifically. It may put out basically too much fruiting wood. And when this happens, this is when you see really excessive fruit drop because it's just too much fruit for the tree to carry. Or you might see biennial bearing, and that's where the tree puts out a really heavy crop of fruit one year and then little to nothing the next year. So I want a more consistent crop. I want to help with some of the disease and pest pressure, and I want to just keep an eye on the form and size of the tree. Well, I don't know whether to be excited or terrified because my peach trees, I can tell that the buds are swelling. It's super visible. I can even see the teeny little bit of pink starting as each bud is starting to open. And I'm even seeing one or two buds actually opening into flowers. So this happened way too fast for my taste, but it's all about Mother Nature and how quickly it decides to warm up in spring. So even though it's mid-February, I'm not technically late in pruning, but I better get this done now or I'm gonna be in trouble. Let's talk about when you should prune. The best time to prune is right now. It's late winter, early spring. And this can vary obviously from climate to climate. And it starts by knowing when your last average frost date is. But that's only part of the story. We've had an exceptionally warm February, and so everything is just starting to wake up a little bit early. This makes me a little nervous because of course we could still get frost, but the reality is this is the time I need to prune before the tree is putting more energy into blooming and fruiting. So yes, know your last frost date, but more importantly, pay attention to the tree itself, look at what the buds are doing, pay attention to the weather, and just kind of make your best judgment call there. Now, there are a couple times when you should not prune, and you want to keep pruning to a minimum in the heat of the summer, although it's possible you could prune lightly just to kind of help with light penetration getting to the fruit. But you just want to minimize stress on the tree, so I avoid pruning at all in the summer. You also don't want to prune too early in the winter. Pruning sends a signal to the tree to start growing again, at least as soon as the weather warms up. So if you prune too soon, it may cause your tree to wake up a little bit sooner in spring. And most of the time that's not a great idea because of this problem, because of late frosts that can happen. The only other suggestion I have as far as when to prune is if you're in a milder climate like me, where my tree basically stops growing in the summer because it gets so hot and it's kind of conserving energy. But then once the weather gets a little bit milder in fall, we have a really long, warm fall. So my tree grows really vigorously after the fruiting season, but before it goes dormant. And so what happens is the top of the tree, if you can see, and I'll show you, these branches just grow and grow and grow all throughout the rest of the season, and they get really, really tall. So in hindsight, I should have tip pruned those really long branches just a little bit in the fall. That would have minimized the amount of pruning I'm doing now, because really I have to do that now. It also just takes a little bit of bulk off the trees so that when the time comes to spray dormant sprays, which I do in the winter, I just have a little less tree to cover. And I'm working on a video about dormant spraying peach trees, so I will definitely let you know when that comes out. I'll put it up here so that you can click to it. That little bit of fall pruning can be really helpful, but winter is really the key. Okay, I've got my pruning shears all sanitized. I'm ready to get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is look for anything on the tree that is dead. And right now it's really easy to tell because there's no buds showing on it. The buds are so prominent right now, it's really easy to see what's dead. And you can also see it because the branch might look kind of dark, almost blackened, or it could look sort of dry and twiggy, like it could break off really easily. All of those things tell you that a branch is dead, and it could just be dead because it's done. It could be dead because of frost damage. Either way, it needs to go so it doesn't cause any problems. So that's the first step, find the dead stuff. Okay, so I got all the dead stuff. There wasn't very much, which is great. But the next step is I'm going to be looking for branches that are growing inward toward the center of the tree because we want to keep that center a little bit more open. I'm also going to look for branches that are crossing because we don't want them to rub as they grow. And then the other thing is if you have any suckers down lower on the tree, I'm looking pretty good right now, but any suckers that are coming from below where you want the tree to start growing. Or another thing to look for is water shoots, which are those shoots that grow straight up from the branches of the tree. I don't have very many, which is great, but I do see a couple. Those branches tend to not fruit either at all or just not as well, and they can kind of cause the tree to get a little bit crowded. So that is the next step. There are a couple things to know about how to make these pruning cuts. If you're cutting a longer branch like this one and you just want it to grow in a different direction, or it's just getting too long and you want it to branch out, the important thing to look for is where the buds are. If you look at the buds, they're kind of growing on opposite sides of the branch as it goes along. And so wherever the bud is, whatever direction it's pointing, that is the direction that a new branch would grow. So if I cut just above this bud right here, come on, focus, the branch will grow off in this direction. So I believe that is what I'm going to do for this particular branch. You can see here's a place where I did just that last year. This branch was growing long in this direction, so I trimmed it just where there was a bud here, and now that bud has caused a new branch to grow. That cut signaled a new branch to grow where that bud was. Now the last step is to climb up on the ladder and tip prune those really long branches. I'm going to aim to prune them no more than 1/3 of the way down, although a couple of them are so long it may have to be closer to half. Generally, as you're pruning, you want to remove no more than 1/3 of the tree's bulk. Any more than that and it's going to stress the tree out, or it's going to cause it to grow a little bit too vigorously this year and not put out enough fruit. So 1/3 is the magic number. But now I'm going to climb up and get these really tall guys. Now it's time for my least favorite part of the job, which is picking up all of these branches. So like I said before, if you're doing your job right, hopefully you won't have as much pruning this year as you did the previous year. And I am finding that to be true, which is really encouraging to me. That hopefully means I did a good job of pruning last year and I set the tree up in a good shape. So when the tree is younger, shape is really the key. But as the tree starts to age, these are 3 or 4 years old, then the shape is going to be pretty well established. So then it's just a matter of maintaining the health of what's there and just maintaining that shape that you want. So after everything, what you really want to do is step back and just take a look at the whole tree, assess how it looks. Are you happy with the overall form? Are you happy with the balance? And don't just look at it from one angle, but walk all the way around the tree, because what looks perfect from one side might look lopsided from the other, so you can make adjustments from there. Also keep your eye out for any areas that seem overly crowded or any like weak or spindly branches that just look like they won't hold up to fruiting. Anything like that just kind of lightens the load of the tree. But again, I want to caution you, less is more. Always err on the side of less pruning rather than more. You can always come back later and add a little bit. You can always continue it next year. But if you overdo, of course, you can't go backwards. So let me know if you have any pruning tips. How do you like to prune your peach trees? How have you found it to be the most effective? And definitely let me know in the comments if you have any questions about what I've done or what you should do when it comes to pruning your peach trees. But good luck this spring. I hope the weather is kind to you and to your peach trees so that you actually get a crop this year. And thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.